the reviewing officer's recommendation and the committee's response. If any, the commission will determine whether the committee violated that statute, and if so, will assess a civil money penalty based on the schedules of penalties. So footnote. Alright, report deadlines. Filing reports. So there's a chart here. Next chapter has a bunch of charts, actually, but report type. Quarterly. So it's nice to have a chart for report deadlines. Report type, quarterly. Covering January 1st through March 31st is due April 15th. Covering April 1st through June 30th is due July 15th. Covering July 1st through September 30th is due October 15th. Covering October 1st through December 31st is due January 31st. Pre-election. Both pre-primary and pre-general, as well as pre-runoff if appropriate, is due first day of the current reporting period through the 20th day before the election. No, it's covers first day of the current reporting period through the 20th day before the election, and it's due 12 days before the election. Post-general, first day of the current reporting period through the 20th day after the general election, and it's due 30 days after the general election. 48-hour notices, reporting contributions of $1,000 or more. Contributions received less than 20 days but more than 48 hours before the election. That's what it covers. Within 48 hours of receipt of the contribution. That's when it's due. So, it's pretty serious. Alright, after the commission considers the reviewing officer's recommendation and the will assess a civil money forfeiture based on the schedules of penalties. I already read that. The committee will then have 30 days to pay the penalty or seek court review of the case. Respondents must demonstrate one of the following situations in their challenge. The RTB filing is based on factual errors. The RTB civil money penalty is inappropriately calculated, or they could not file due to reasonably unforeseen circumstances beyond their control, and they have filed the late report within 24 hours after those circumstances ended, also called the best efforts defense. Excuses involving negligence, illness, inexperience, unavailability of committee staff, or treasurer, failing to know filing dates, failure to use commission software properly, delays caused by vendors, or failure of the committee's computers, software, or internet service provider do not qualify for the best efforts defense. 5. Electronic filing. Campaign committees of House and presidential candidates must file all reports and statements electronically if their total contributions or total expenditures exceed or are expected to exceed $50,000 in a calendar year. The requirement to file electronically does not apply to Senate candidate committees or other committees that support only Senate candidates. You're required to file the reports on paper with the Secretary of the Senate. There's some footnotes. For more information on the Administrative Fine Program, see 11 CFR or the Commission's website. Next footnote. These rules are effective as of April 30th, 2007. Another footnote. Senate candidates are encouraged to file an unofficial electronic copy of their reports with the FEC, in addition to their official copy, an official paper copy with the Secretary of the Senate to ensure faster disclosure. Any committees that are required to file electronically, but that file on paper or fail to file, may be subject to enforcement actions as non-filers. See the previous section, Administrative Fines for late filers and non-filers. Because electronic filing is more efficient and cost-effective than paper filing, even House and presidential candidates that do not meet the $50,000 threshold are encouraged to voluntarily file their reports electronically. Please note, however, that voluntary electronic filers must continue to file electronically for the remainder of the calendar year, unless the Commission determines that extraordinary and unforeseeable circumstances make continued electronic filing impractical. Methods of electronic filing. Most committees file electronically, find it convenient to do so via an internet connection with a password. Committees, however, submit their electronic reports on CDs, either hand-delivered or sent by other means, such as U.S. Postal Service. Electronic filers must file all their reports, notices, designations, and statements electronically, and the reports must adhere to the FEC's electronic filing specification requirements. Calculating the threshold. Committees should use the following formulas to determine whether their total expenditures or total contributions are over $50,000 per calendar year. Total contributions received minus refunds of contributions equals total contributions, or total operating expenditures plus contribution made equals total expenditures. There's 2 footnotes here, available online at fec.gov, blah blah, or paper form from the FEC, including the outstanding balance of any loans made, guaranteed, or endorsed by the candidate or other person. Have reason to expect or to exceed the threshold. Once committees actually exceed the $50,000 yearly threshold, they have reason to expect to exceed the threshold in the following 2 calendar years. Consequently, committees must continue to file electronically for the next 2 calendar years, January through December. Exemption. A campaign committee that met or exceeded the $50,000 threshold and began filing electronically is not required to file electronically for the following 2 calendar years if it meets all 3 of the following requirements: has $50,000 or less in net debts outstanding on January 1st of the year following an election, anticipates terminating prior to the next election year, and supports a candidate who was not qualified for the next election and does not intend to become a candidate in the next election. Note that such committees must finish filing electronically for the calendar year in which they exceed the threshold. Committees with no history. New committees with no history of campaign finance activity on which to base their expectations have reason to expect to exceed the $50,000 yearly threshold if the committee receives contribution or makes expenditures that exceed 1/4 of the threshold amount in the first calendar quarter of the calendar year, i.e. exceeds $12,500 by the end of March, or the committee receives contributions or makes expenditures that exceed 1/2 of the threshold amount in the first half of the calendar year, exceeds $25,000 by the end of June. Verification requirements. The political committee's treasurer must verify the electronically filed reports by submitting either a signed written certification along with the CD, or a digitized copy of the signed certification as a separate file in an electronic, i.e. not transmitted by CD submission. The signed verification must certify that the treasurer or assistant treasurer has examined the submitting report and that, to the best of his or her knowledge, the report is true, correct, and complete. Obtaining a password. Requesting a password. For registered committees, only the official treasurer, as listed on the committee's statement of organization, may obtain an electronic filing password. Most committees may obtain or change their password online at FEC. A validation email will be sent to the email address listed on the committee's statement of organization. Existing committees that have not previously used the online system should contact the electronic filing office for assistance at 202-694-1307. An entity or person other than the political committee can obtain an electronic filing password by faxing or mailing a password request letter to the electronic filing office. For more information and further instructions, consult that website. Lost or forgotten password. The Commission cannot provide a treasurer's password to a treasurer or committee if a treasurer forgets or loses the password because the passwords are encrypted. Instead, the treasurer must request a new password following the procedure above. New treasurers and new e-filers. In some cases, a committee may have a new treasurer who has been neither assigned a password nor has a signature on file, and due to the requirement that all filing information be submitted electronically, cannot amend the statement of organization to indicate the change of position. Under these circumstances, the new treasurer must submit a password request which contains the sentence, "I represent that I am the duly appointed treasurer and have authority as such to sign FEC reports for the above committee." Once a password is received, an amended Form 1 must be filed to indicate the change of position. Special requirements. The following documents have special signatures and submission requirements. Schedule C1, Loans and Lines of Credit, include copies of loan agreements, and Form 8, Debt Settlement Plan. These two forms, in addition to being included in the electronic report, must be submitted on paper or in digitized format, submitted as a separate file to the electronic report. Public inspection of reports. All reports filed by political committees are available for public inspection and copying for a minimal fee in the FEC's Public Records Office. They are also available on the Commission's website, www.fec.gov/disclosure.html. So, that's cool. Copies of reports may also be purchased by mail. For more information, call 800-424-9530. Press 2 when prompted, or 202-694-1120. Sale or use restriction. The Act prohibits anyone from selling or using the names and addresses of individual contributors, copied from FEC reports, for commercial purposes, or for the purpose of soliciting funds. This sale or use restriction, however, does not apply to the names and addresses of political committees that are listed in FEC reports. Salting reports to detect misuse. When preparing a report to be filed, a committee may salt the report with up to 10 fictitious names in order to detect impermissible uses of individual contributor information by other organizations. Salting can be done by taking a portion of the subtotal for unauthorized contributions and allocating it as salting can be done by taking a portion of the subtotal for unitemized contributions and allocating it as itemized contributions among several fictitious contributors. The committee itemizes each fictitious contribution on a Schedule A, providing a real address, such as the address of a campaign staff member, for each fictitious contributor. The committee must adjust its subtotals for itemized and unitemized contributions accordingly on the detailed summary page. If a solicitation or commercial mailing is sent to one of the fictitious names, the committee will know that someone has illegally used the names of contributors disclosed on its reports. The committee may then file a complaint with the FEC. When a committee files a report containing fictitious names, a list of the fictitious names should be sent under a separate cover directly to the FEC's Reports Analysis Division, not the Secretary of the Senate, where Senate candidates' reports are filed. The list will be kept confidential. Sale or use of committee's contributor list. The sale or use restriction does not permit a committee from compiling its own list of contributors and distributing it to others. Under certain conditions, a committee may donate, sell, trade, or rent its own contributor list to other committees and organizations.